In the shadow of England's Industrial Revolution, life was harsh, and death was an all too familiar visitor. Poverty, disease, and despair haunted the coal-mining towns of northern England. Yet even in this grim landscape, one woman's actions stood out for their cold-blooded ruthlessness. Mary Ann Cotton, a nurse, mother, and widow several times over, wielded death as her weapon. With a bottle of arsenic and a chilling smile, she left a trail of victims across Victorian England. Today, we unravel the twisted tale of Britain's first known female serial killer. Mary Ann Robson was born in October 1832 in Low Moorsley, County Durham, into a world defined by hard labor and high mortality. Her father, Michael Robson, was a coal miner, part of a class that toiled long hours in dangerous conditions for meager pay. Her mother, Margaret Robson, was a resilient woman who worked tirelessly to keep the family afloat despite their dire circumstances. But Margaret's strength was tested when tragedy struck. At just 8 years old, Mary Ann experienced her first brush with death. Her father fell to his death in a mining accident, leaving the family destitute. His body was discovered at the bottom of a pit shaft, and the only way Margaret could identify him was by his checked shirt. The tragedy marked the beginning of a lifetime marred by loss, and for Mary Ann, a growing obsession with survival at any cost. Mary Ann's mother soon remarried, a union that reportedly caused friction between the young girl and her new stepfather. Eager to escape her constrained and unhappy home life, Mary Ann left at 16 to work as a domestic servant. It was during these formative years that she honed her ability to charm and manipulate that would later become her most dangerous weapons. In 1852, at the age of 20, Mary Ann married her first husband, William Mowbray, a miner like her father. The couple moved to Cornwall, where William found work, and Mary Ann began building a family. Over the next decade, Mary Ann gave birth to as many as 9 children, though records are unclear. What is indisputable is that only one child, Isabella, survived into adulthood. The rest succumbed to what doctors of the time called gastric fever, a vague diagnosis covering a range of symptoms from vomiting to severe diarrhea. While the death of children was tragically common in Victorian England, the frequency of these losses in Mary Ann's household raised no alarms at the time. Medical knowledge was limited, and diseases like typhoid, cholera, and dysentery were rampant, especially in poor mining communities. Mary Ann used this to her advantage, hiding her crimes in plain sight. When William himself died in 1865, reportedly from intestinal issues, Mary Ann collected a substantial life insurance payout, her first taste of profit from death. By now, Mary Ann's methods were becoming more deliberate. After William's death, she moved back to the northeast of England, where she soon met her second husband, George Ward. George, already in poor health, was a former patient at a hospital where Mary Ann worked as a nurse. Their marriage lasted less than a year. George died in 1866, and the cause of death was listed as, again, gastric fever. Mary Ann, now a widow for the second time, collected yet another insurance payout. Next came James Robinson, a shipwright who had recently lost his wife. James, left to care for several young children, hired Mary Ann as a housekeeper. But shortly after her arrival, tragedy struck. 3 of James's children died in quick succession, their symptoms eerily similar to Mary Ann's previous victims. Overcome with grief, James turned to Mary Ann for comfort, and the two were married in 1867. Their marriage, however, was far from happy. James began to notice unsettling patterns. He was a practical man, accustomed to managing his finances with care, and Mary Ann's spending habits quickly raised alarms. Money began disappearing from the household, and valuable items vanished, later found pawned in local shops. The final straw came when Mary Ann insisted on taking out life insurance policies, not just on James but also on their infant son. Her urgency and persistence unsettled him. One evening, James confronted Mary Ann with evidence of her theft. He had discovered pawn tickets hidden among her belongings, proving she had been selling household items behind his back. When he questioned her motives, Mary Ann's calm facade began to crack. Her explanations were evasive, her charm unable to pacify James's growing suspicions. James, determined to protect himself and his remaining child, demanded that Mary Ann leave his home. Realizing her deception had been uncovered, Mary Ann fled the household under the cover of darkness. She left behind her infant son, George, and James Robinson, both of whom survived, likely spared by James's intervention. Mary Ann's plans failed for the first time, but she remained unaffected. She disappeared into the streets, looking for her next opportunity. For James, her departure was a relief. He would later discover that he had narrowly escaped becoming another victim of Mary Ann. In 1870, Mary Ann married Frederick Cotton, her fourth husband. Frederick, a widower with 2 young sons, had recently lost his wife, and Mary Ann stepped in as a nurse to care for the grieving family. But the Cotton household would soon fall victim to Mary Ann's deadly touch. Within 2 years, Frederick, his sons, and even Mary Ann's own mother, who had come to live with the family, were all dead. Gastric fever was listed as the cause in each case, but Mary Ann profited handsomely from life insurance payouts. Mary Ann's downfall began with the death of Charles Cotton, Frederick's youngest son. A neighbor grew suspicious after noticing Mary Ann frequently purchasing arsenic, ostensibly for cleaning purposes. The local doctor, alarmed by the boy's symptoms, ordered an autopsy. The results were damning. Charles had been poisoned with arsenic. Mary Ann Cotton's arrest and trial became one of the most sensational cases of the era. Witnesses testified about her arsenic purchases, her suspicious behavior, and the string of deaths that followed her. In 1873, Mary Ann was convicted of the murder of Charles Cotton. While she was officially charged with only 1 murder, it is believed she was responsible for at least 21 deaths, including 3 husbands, several lovers, her own children, and even her mother. On March 24, 1873, Mary Ann Cotton was hanged, her crimes finally catching up to her. Yet questions lingered. How many lives had she truly claimed? And how had she evaded suspicion for so long? In an era when death was common and women were often underestimated, Mary Ann exploited the trust of those around her to commit unthinkable acts. Mary Ann Cotton's story is a reminder of how greed and cunning can corrupt the human soul. Her crimes exploited the vulnerabilities of Victorian society, leaving a legacy of fear that still resonates today. Thank you for joining me as we delved into the life of Britain's deadliest Black Widow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.